First of all, I want to thank Joshua for inviting me to come out here today. My name's Toby, and I'm from El Cerrito, California. I'm an active member with Code Pink Bay Area and a big organizer for Code Pink. And I've been fighting war pretty strongly for about 10 years, and we haven't been very successful at ending these illegal wars and occupations, but we keep doing it. And we need more young people, because a lot of us are getting up there in years, and we need to see people on college campuses organizing. But I want to thank Joshua for inviting me, and I want to say a few things about drones. I first found out about drones in 2009. It was really when the little windows started opening up, and only a few activists around the country were starting to get information about drone warfare. But as the previous speaker said, it's been a very secret type of warfare. And it was still, to this day, we only know the very tip of the iceberg. It is still very, very secret. And so when I found out in 2009, I was appalled that my government was developing and using weapons, planes that are flown without a pilot. You know, they call these people that sit in the desert and in front of computer terminals that spend their day killing people in other countries, they call them pilots. I don't know how they ever got to keep that name, because they never get inside a plane. So these planes are flying thousands of miles away, killing people. And I was so shocked, and I was especially shocked because of our long history. If any of you here, I'm sure most of you have studied American history, and you know all the human rights violations that the CIA has committed in the world, and you know all the innocent people killed by our nuclear weapons, you know all the innocent people that are killed in countries that we've helped install military dictatorships. This is not a government that I trust, that I will put in in their hands the right to decide who's to live and who's to die. And we need to stop this, because we're setting a very dangerous example for the rest of the world. We should never allow another country to fly over our airway and decide which bad people in our country should be eliminated, or just decide who in our country is a bad person. And our government should not do it in other countries either. And more than that, as this previous speaker said, we're terrorizing these communities, not just by the drone killings, but just by doing the surveillance. But even beyond that, even if we didn't have armed drones, we have no right to fly over a sovereign nation and do surveillance on them. No right at all. It's against their right to be free of being surveyed by anybody. Just like there's a big growing movement in this country against domestic drones. We need to include in that conversation that other countries shouldn't be spied on. So anyway, I was part of a peace delegation that went to Pakistan last October. And there were 34 Americans that went to Pakistan. The interesting thing is, we went there at a time when the study that the gentleman was talking about that was being done on Stanford, it was just put out publicly about how these communities in the tribal regions of Pakistan are being terrorized by drones, they have high suicide rate, etc. And so that came out while we went over there, and we actually got to meet with the people from the tribal regions. They brought them in to Islamabad, and we got to sit and hear their very tragic stories. And I wanted to share one story by the only one that spoke very fluent English. And his name was Karim Khan. And he came home one night in Pakistan to his compound to find that his compound had been hit by a U.S. drone missiles. And what he found was his 18-year-old son, who had just finished high school and was hoping to go to college, was killed. He also found that his youngest brother, who was an educator of English, his family come from a family of professionals. He has a brother, I believe that's a doctor, another brother who's a university instructor in Islamabad. He's a well-educated man, and his youngest brother was killed by U.S. drone strike, as well as his 18-year-old son. And the third person that was killed in this drone strike was a man that was visiting his village, a stonemason, to build a new mosque. Those are the only 3 people that were killed in this U.S. drone strike. Now, we listened to these stories, these very tragic stories. It's very hard to hear. It's probably the hardest thing about our trip. And, you know, a lot of questions were asked of Karim Khan, and after all the questions were done, I had a burning question inside. So I went up to Karim Khan, and I said, Karim, if you could have drones, would you use them? And he immediately said, absolutely, absolutely. And I said, well, what would you use drones for? And his immediate response was, I'd use them to shoot down other drones. And I said, well, Karim, would you send those drones over the United States to kill people in this country? Now remember, this is a man whose son and brother and a stonemason were killed, and his house was damaged severely in a U.S. strike. And he said, absolutely not. And he went on to explain in great length how killing innocent people is against his faith. And he explained what his faith teaches him. And I was really happy to hear that response. I was so happy I forgot where I was, and I said, Karim, can I hug you? Because this man had no desire to kill innocent people. And he stepped back immediately because it's against his tribal tradition to hug a woman he doesn't know. And then I remembered where I was, and anyway, I thanked him very much, and then I got on the bus soon after that with the other peace delegates to go back to our hotel, and I started thinking about 9/11 and the people that were killed in 9/11. I started thinking about everything that our government and military has done in the world, justifying it by what was done to us on 9/11, and all the innocent people that are not only killed, the millions in Iraq, over a million civilians dead by a lie based on war, a war based on lies, and all the other, I mean, we could go on, the people, thousands and thousands of people, just millions of people displaced from our occupations, even in Pakistan alone. In the tribal region, they used to be self-sufficient. They used to provide all the fruit of it for their entire population in their country. Much of it came from the tribal region, and guess what? Now they have to import their produce because there's been so much displacement that they don't even have people to pick the produce on their trees. That's just one little example. So, at any rate, I got to thinking, and I just felt really, really, even though I was happy to hear Karim's response, I was really, really sad inside to think about how easily Americans have sit back passively and allowed all this violence to be shed around the world, and we need to get involved and take responsibility. The other thing I want to emphasize before I'm done is what we have to remember is these weapons, these wonderful high-tech weapons that some stupid researcher decided it was a good idea without thinking about the long-term effects. These weapons are not designed to kill the people that our government really considers a big threat in terms of countries that have strong militaries. Drone missiles, drone warfare would never be used in North Korea. Not for killing, that I would believe. At least not the current ones. They wouldn't be used in Iran. They wouldn't be used in China, all the countries that we're told are our enemies. These drones were designed to be used on people who are defenseless. People who are sitting ducks on the ground or at the mercy of the drone pilot to decide if they're guilty or not. And our government, our president came out last year that we are now killing people. It's called signature strikes. Did the speaker talk about signature strikes? You know, we're killing people just based on behavior. Well, they look like they're kind of guilty of something. They're hanging around too close to an Al-Qaeda camp. Or we saw them go into a restaurant yesterday with someone else we consider bad. And therefore, Obama considers we have the right to kill those people too. We are labeling all men of militant age, militants, all people, any man who is 17, I don't know what is military age now, 18? Well, how do you know when you're looking up from a drone plane with the satellites and the cameras, but you're sitting in the desert of Nevada? How do you know what the age of a human being is? I saw a videotape of a pilot giving a testimony, an ex-British pilot, drone pilot. And he said they were doing surveillance somewhere and they spot someone digging around in the dirt on a roadside. And the immediate response was what? Someone planning an IED. We got to get rid of them. And they were preparing to assassinate this man that was being seen from the cameras up thousands of miles in the sky in the desert of Nevada, or whoever pushed the button on the computer screen, whatever. And within a minute or two, there was another figure that appeared in the surveillance camera, and it was a figure that was much bigger than the little body that was on the ground digging in the dirt, and they realized this was a child. And they were preparing to kill this child based on suspicion. This is what we do in the world. The CIA has a private drone program separate from the U.S. military. I don't trust the CIA in any one tiny bit that they can make good judgment over who can live and who can die in the world. No one should do that. That's why we have due process. We're supposed to have due process. We now killed 3 American citizens with drone strikes. One was a 16-year-old boy who was not involved in any militancy at all. He was just looking for his father in Yemen. We need to have conversations with our families and our friends and really educate the public that as Joshua said, our government is lying to us. These are not precision instruments. And we're making enemies wherever we go. That picture on the wall there of the child with his skull blown up, he is a victim of a drone strike. We carried him on a bus. We were part of a big caravan in Pakistan. And we were headed to Waziristan to speak to the people in Waziristan and show solidarity to them that we stand as Americans against U.S. drone strikes. Unfortunately, the Pakistan government blocked all the borders, wouldn't let us in. But we got to have our rally just outside Waziristan, and the people were so grateful that Americans came all the way across the world to stand in solidarity with them. So it meant a lot for me to be there and look into their eyes and tell them, that we don't agree with all this crazy violence that we're committing. So there's so much to say. If you have part of a community that you would like a speaker, I'd be very happy to talk at much more length about drones. I'm really into educating people about it, because the only way we're going to change this is to, first of all, start to get the truth out. It's kind of buried in the dust. So I want to thank Joshua. I had one other story, but I don't think there's time for it. Is that correct?
No, there's no more.
So thank you, Joshua, for having me.